Hey guys, Stefan here again. Gonna do another video this time about Bitcoin versus no-coiners and the no-coiner ideology. So the interesting thing with no-coiners is it's basically an ideology. So let me just flip into screen share now. And you can see here the no-coiner. So it's like a new word that's come out, and I actually think it's a really good, succinct term. And it basically means a person who doesn't have Bitcoin, and it's usually socialists, lawyers, and MBA economists. And they're basically just like slinging mud to try and get click views, clickbait on their articles and on their speeches and whatever videos that they post. So often they're claiming that Bitcoin's going to crash. They call it tulips. They think everyone else is in a collective little delusion except for themselves, and it's just a very elitist attitude overall. And what I wanted to talk about with this video is just about how these people, they're coming from a totally different frame of mind. They come at this like the world needs benevolent dictators who set the money supply, and they centrally plan and coordinate it out. And if it were not for this central planner, we couldn't have money, and that would just be it. But that's obviously not true, because many times in human history we've had money that has emerged absent the state. So you got gold is the most obvious example, and there's so many more examples. Or even in specific circumstances, like in prison camps when cigarettes were money. So you can see, obviously, that's not true. It's not true that you need a dictator or someone coming on from down high to tell you, ah, this is your money and you should use this. That's just not the way the world works. But these no coiners, they have this sort of emotional attachment to the concept. And I think part of it is that if it were sort of revealed that actually the state was not necessary to make money, then their positions would be jeopardized a little bit. It's like that saying, I think it's an Upton Sinclair quote, where he basically says you can't expect a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. Yeah? So, just a couple examples that I thought I would just jump through. So here's an article that came out recently. Blockchain or blockheads? Bitcoin mania mints believers and skeptics. And this is, what, 5 days ago. And so I just find it really funny that in 2018, people are still making these sort of same tulips arguments, right? I mean, last time I checked, tulips weren't digitally scarce. You couldn't send them anywhere in the world at a very low cost or send at a very, very high value. You can send millions worth of them across the world just like that. And that they're this censorship resistant money that is, can't be centrally inflated and all these properties, right? It just doesn't gel well. It's an argument that has been dealt with time and time and time again, and yet it just seems to come up again. So I think it's sort of just a case of people just trying to, again, agitate and do sort of clickbait style arguments rather than actually like digging into it and really finding the better arguments against Bitcoin, which I might actually cover in another video sometime. And then you can see here he's even going into like, okay, yeah, obviously there are some companies who've renamed to blockchain and they've had a spike in their price, but that has very little to do with Bitcoin, right? It's it's like Bitcoin is the Amazon of the dot-com bubble. It's the one that'll actually do well. There's actually an underlying value to it. Whereas obviously there's a lot of other, shit coins and other crazy things going on, like people just renaming to blockchain and so on, right? But he's sort of trying to tar everything with the same brush, and that's not really accurate, right? That's not a good way to think about things. And so here's another no coiner. So this is a little bit of an older article, almost 2 years old now, by Vivek Wadhwa. And basically he's sort of saying, oh yeah, look, Bitcoin's a failure, it's a bubble. And the problem with these people is they're like a broken clock, right? They just say, oh yeah, it's a bubble, it's gonna fail, it's gonna fail. And sort of Bitcoin in the meantime just keeps running up, and then it might have a crash for a little bit, and then just keep running up again. But they'll say, "Oh, look, see, I was right. It crashed." But again, that's not real. If you sort of zoom out on that chart and look at the overall view, well, no, that's not what's happening here. And it's not that like Tulip Bubble has a like keeps going up and then crashes again and keeps going up each time higher than the last time. So that's got to give you some pause there. The other thing is, these people don't even put skin in the game, right? Like, so when this tweet happened, okay, obviously about 2 years ago now, as I'm making this video, Wences, who is the CEO of Zapper, which is a Bitcoin company, think of them like a Bitcoin bank, right? He came out and made a big bet saying, look, I bet you $250,000 or 655 BTC on your side, right? Saying if obviously if Wences won, he would have Vivek pay him Bitcoin, and if Wences lost, he would pay him $250,000 US, right? But obviously, crickets, right? No response. He didn't come back and say, "Oh yeah, I accept your bet," because again, these people they don't have skin in the game. They're not really willing to put their money where their mouth is. Whereas a lot of us Bitcoiners, we have put our money where our mouth is for years, right? And then just as a quick sort of like example, like let's say that they had taken that bet up, and now you can see here that was about a year later, and at that time the price was in this range. So pretty much, if they had taken that bet, Wences would have won. So that gives you something to think about there, doesn't it? The next one, now this is a known kind of troll, basically. Paul Krugman, I mean, he comes out and he's like, oh, it's this fancy thing that, nobody understands. And here, there's been no demonstration that is actually helpful in conducting economic transactions. And yet, I mean, if you had done even 5 seconds of Google research, you would go onto these websites that show you blockchain analysis and show you there's literally millions of dollars being transferred on Bitcoin every day. So that's, again, wrong. And so you can see he's trying to appeal to this concept that there should be some kind of anchor to its value. Or even more, he's saying pieces of paper with dead presidents on them, those are anchored by the fact that you can pay taxes. And so you can see here, if you pay attention back to what I was saying before about this emotional attachment to having like this big daddy government or a benevolent dictator who's there to kind of tell you this is the money and you should use that. That's the frame of mind that he's coming from. And so you can see why he doesn't actually understand the way money really works and the way it's a social phenomenon, right? It would be like going to a party and expecting there's one central guy who tells you, okay, now you're going to talk to this person for 5 minutes and that one for 5 minutes. No, that's not how social things work. People are spontaneous. We make decisions based on the kind of our own desires and our wants, and the desire for money is really the desire to sort of preserve our value into the future and to sort of not lose too much of that value, right? But it's just that we live in this world that it's like we're fish swimming in the water and we don't realize that we're swimming in that water because that's what we're in, right? So we've lived in this world with an inflationary money, but now Bitcoin is here and it's like a deflationary money and it's going to outcompete the inflationary monies. So that's something for you to think about there. The other thing is, yeah, so to summarize, to really be a good hodler, right? To have that hodler resolve, you really have to you have to lose that emotional attachment that a lot of these no-coiners have. If you don't lose that emotional attachment to the state creating money concept, you're going to miss out on the gains, right? Look what would have happened if you had held for 5 years. If you bought even, $100 worth, then this is the sort of gain you would have experienced. So I think, kind of just summarizing, you've really got to dig a little bit deeper, and you've got to understand more about why it is we use money and how it is that we choose certain forms of money over other forms of money. And then you have to just be brutally honest and you have to be willing to question. And I think that's why so many people were not able to understand Bitcoin, because it contradicted too many of their pre-existing beliefs or their priors. Yeah? So that's basically the lesson I'm trying to convey here, is that you need to really take a critical eye to some of those things. So yeah, thanks guys. Catch you in the next one.